Today I'd like to share with you the story of a boy nearly half my age now who left a peaceful life growing up in the Ozark Mountains, really on a journey to find himself. With the help of others, instead, he was able to find something even richer, and that is the value of community. I apologize because I oftentimes find myself emotional in the retelling of this story. So I thought about hardening myself and just simply telling you a historical narrative that would be devoid of emotion. But that wouldn't be fair to the remembrance of those who have taught me the value of truly living. So instead, today, I want you to hear from a lost 22-year-old boy who is on the balance between life and death. Death is the great equalizer. When we realize the finite nature of our lives, we oftentimes recognize its value, and ultimately, then the value of others. It's 8:46 in the morning, and I'm staring out a window past a crowd of people. There are office papers adrift in the sky. Some of them are on fire. As I approach the glass, it seems that time is standing still in the streets below me. There are 61 floors between me and the rest of my life, but I don't yet know that. Earlier that day, standing in the same window, I'd felt so much pride to be standing at the pinnacle of the financial world. But now, I wanted to be anywhere other than where I was standing. My boss snaps me out of a confused trance as he tells everyone on my floor, evacuate. I found myself lost in a crowd, separated from anyone that I knew, and plunged into a stairwell with hundreds of strangers. Minutes felt like hours as we descended each floor at a pace that was dependent on every person in front of us. I think to myself, you'll be okay. This is probably one of those fire drill moments that'll relegate itself to break room banter later on today. I glance up to see the number of the floor that I'm passing. It reads 44. Simultaneously, as this registers on my brain, I'm knocked from my feet. The lights flicker, and then darkness. The stairwell feels like a tomb of strangers. Screams ring out. Prayers. Final words. Death felt imminent. I'm on one knee, clinging to the stairwell of Tower 2 of the World Trade Center. Today is September the 11th, 2001. Although we don't know it yet, a clock has started. We have 56 minutes before the tower that we're in will collapse. It sometimes takes pain, fear, and even the quieting nature of circumstances to remind us what has always been written on our heart. We are designed for community. The fullness of life is found when we help one another. HELP is an acronym for hope, empathy, love, and peace. I'd like to break that down in the remainder of our time together. As I reflect back on the events of that day and the days that followed, I believe that there is much to be learned. Strangers became compassionate companions, and companions rallied together to form community. We're still almost 500 feet off the ground. Time seems to slow down. Noise is blotted out, but I can feel and hear the rhythmic thumping of my heart. My brain goes into overdrive, remembering family, crying out to the Lord, really clinging to any hope that I might have for the future. Images of my mother holding my hand whenever I was a child because I was too scared to ride in an elevator came flooding into my mind. My situation was dire enough that I prayed that God would make my death quick and painless. CEOs, sales clerks, computer programmers, stockbrokers, no matter your position in life, every single one of us were equally helpless in that moment. We relied on those in front of us and those around us to be able to move towards freedom. As the emergency lights came back on in the stairwell, the collective fear around me was overwhelming. As I look back on those moments, I'm able to see two parts of hope that protected me from despair. One part, what I would call hope eternal, I had wrestled with well before the events of 9/11, in that I had a confidence. I had a confidence and a hope that was anchored in a belief in the fulfillment of my faith. A philosopher once wrote, "Hope is the anchor of the soul, both sure and steadfast." This gave me the foundation to respond to my present condition, or what I would call hope present. Although hope sometimes feels like a distant emotional island that's reserved exclusively for seasons of despair, I believe that hope is the beginning. Hope is the beginning of both giving and receiving help. So I would ask you, as you take inventory of your lives today, where have you anchored your hope? Slowly, we began moving with an ever-increasing sense of urgency. It was somewhere around the 10th floor that smoke was starting to get heavy. We still didn't know what had gone on around us or below us. I began to think, maybe this is a bomb below us, like the '93 attack on the World Trade Center. Uncertainty was building even as I had grown more hopeful the closer that I got to the ground. Caught in the fear of indecision, I stopped to feel a door that I was passing to see how hot it was. I couldn't tell. What do I do? In that instant, I got my lifeline. Coming up the stairwell was the first New York firefighter. And in a moment, I'll never forget. He looked at me and he said, "There's a way out. You're going to be okay." These small acts of kindness are the well that we draw upon in the desert. Empathy most often is earned rather than learned. We seem to grasp it well when life places us in a shared condition or circumstance, but like water, it can slip through our grasp and dry up when we find ourselves back in a place of security. You see, empathy is being in the storm-tossed boat with others, not simply directing a light in the lighthouse. Although I don't desire it, I'm grateful for moments of adversity. They deepen my understanding for what it is that we share, rather than simply igniting my apathy. Empathy is inconvenient because it requires of us our most precious asset to grow and to thrive. It requires our time. Are you willing to invest your time? How we respond in our moments of highest calling is typically not determined on the day of calling. It is determined in the days, in the weeks, even the years leading up to it, in a life that is marked by an understanding of the value of other people. The bravery of firefighters had given us renewed hope. The heroes were in it with us. I exited the stairwell into the mezzanine level and saw for the first time what had gone on around us. What had been a grand entry earlier that day had been reduced to a shell of blown out glass and ash. Bodies had been pulled in and covered with newspapers. One woman's pantyhose were burned to the back of her legs from a fire somewhere in the building. There were so many sights and sounds I can't begin to describe to you. Yet in the midst of chaos and destruction, I saw the goodness of people. There was no pushing and clawing in a frantic effort to escape a building that was on the verge of collapse. Rather, our journey was marked by random acts of strangers who were willing to serve and to sacrifice. When you have hope, when you share empathy, you produce the act of love, even love for strangers. You see, love does not require uniformity. I know that the world feels like a very fractured place today, but I've stood shoulder to shoulder with Americans, with civilians in trying times, and I can tell you, there is a love for one another. It's simply buried beneath the pretext of political discord and misplaced identity. I love this country, and I love our people. When we remember this, no one can take from us that which they seek to destroy, because it is not theirs for the taking. I had to exit out of the adjacent tower because too much deadly debris was falling outside of Tower 2. I found myself at the threshold of the exit door as a firefighter stopped me and said, "Don't look up, just run." So I ran into a sea of people and saw for the first time the destruction that was broadcasting on news channels around the world. The firefighter's voice kept echoing in my mind, "Just run, just run." So I ran for about 15 minutes until I heard a loud rumbling. I turned back just in time to see Tower 2 of the World Trade Center disappear. I had seen, even expected love from those closest from me, my family, my community. But that day, that was the first time that I had seen sacrifice of the highest order from those who did not even know me. Heroes had given me the ability to walk out of the building that day, but the character that I observed, that has changed the way that I've walked every day since. The final element of help is peace. You may not think that chaos and trauma could ever produce peace. That is rarely the intent of those who create destruction. And yet, peace is made most apparent in its absence. Peace is the response to anchored hope, to compassionate empathy, and to lasting love. Although peace is predominantly internal, it is transmissible. It's transmissible through our response during trying times. Do you have peace? My father once told me, the adversity of life is designed to shape us in ways that prosperity cannot. We never choose adversity. It is a divine gift. God allows it to come when and where it can do eternal good. Knowledge comes from learning. But true wisdom, that comes from experiences understood. The tragedy of the events of September 11th was a loss almost too great to bear. Simple remembrance falls short of the sacrifices made that day. I cannot repay in kind those sacrifices. But what I can do is live a life in honor of those lost. And what I can do is live a life that is marked by showing hope, by showing empathy, by showing peace and love to those around me. My name is Nathan Harness, and I'm here because I received help, and you can too. Thank you.